Thank you. President of the Republic, mostly President of the African National Congress, President of the Congress of South African Students, leadership of SADU led by GS, leadership of SASCO, leadership of the ANC and YTT, led by Comrade Joy, YCLSA, member of the Diplomatic Corps and members of the Black and White Army. Good morning, Dumelang Bagaej. We are greeting you under the name of Each One, Teach One, as last month we were celebrating 42 years of excellence in existence. It was precisely this month when Mama Winnie Mandela and Ntate Motobeng nurtured Tsietsi Mashimini about the liberty of Africa in particular, thereafter mentored ideologically by Steve Biko, Black Conscience, and a friend, Dio. As Cosas, we want to send a clear message to members of Cosas and the current youth that apartheid regime and exploitation of subject was never fought by Sarafina. Thank you, comrades. I will then introduce the guests. We have Ntate Paul Sehlabelo, Chief of Staff from Education. We have Sasko SG Butenani. We are not sure about ANC and YTT and others that we invited for message of support. So I will therefore give the platform for message of support to Sasko SG Butenani.
Good morning to everyone. Good morning to the leadership of Cosas, from the president to the provincial leadership across the country. Good morning to the president of the African National Congress and the country. Good morning largely to the membership of Cosas and the PYA structures. We must firstly apologize for being late. We never thought you can be late online, but we are in rural areas of Venda. One, we must appreciate this opportunity that Cosas has invited us to. We would have been aware of we list the former or the lead student activists. And I would remember that at our time when we were in Cosas, we were having a debate that actually maybe the president must consider, is to say that June must stop being called a youth month, but it must be called a student month or learners month, because the uprising that happened was as a result of the learners. But as you grow, we realize that also the struggle in its own does not necessitate that you must have, or it was only learners that participated in 1976, but also you would have had young people that participated whom were not students, which is why we as SASCO continue to be persistent that our struggle should not only for free education, should not only be led by us, but it is a struggle that should involve members of community. As you would understand that actually hardest hit currently are the public servants whom do not qualify for NSFAS, but at the same time do not afford to pay the university fees, which is why we have been lobbying all sectors of society, including Cosas, to say we must lobby government to increase the cap at least to 600,000. But coming to remembering the student activists, when you have the likes of Bo Homophobic, you have the likes of Bo Mboisa Makhubu, who were affected and who got lost in 1976 after the whole fiasco. We ought to honor their memory. We have Bo KK Papiane, Bo Xolanene. We can count as many, but Tandwandondo was brutally killed. And of course, we would mention the founding president of Cosas. So we as the current generation have a duty to honor their memory. We have a duty that as and when we remember them, their departure must serve to us as a reminder of why we're here. And it must serve as an awakening of our commitment to the service of the students. We must say that we do wish and we're happy to see that there has been a stability within Cosas. I mean, I think as a leadership of Cosas, you would have been aware and following the dynamics that day. In Cosas, if you are SG or president, you don't finish a term and so on and so forth. And of course, that is not an excuse for ill discipline. But as this generation and as your generation, you have a duty to ensure that you hand over Cosas to the next generation. Cosas must live beyond its 40 years. It must live beyond its 50 years. It must celebrate, like the South African Communist Party, its centenary, like the African National Congress. So we have a duty, one, to ensure that we keep the Progressive Youth Alliance. And we have a duty to ensure that we keep the independence of Cosas. And I want to say to the African National Congress that I am not truly convinced that SASCO and Cosas are just PYA structures, because I think that we're actually in an alliance with the African National Congress, with the South African Communist Party, with COSATU as mother body structures, and ourselves as the only independent structures. Not, of course, we work with the leagues because both Cosas and SASCO are predominantly mobilizing young people. But we, even if Comrade Cyril is a student, he should join SASCO. If he's in university, if he was in high school, we would say he must join Cosas. So that is something that we also wish to register. We need an improved way of operation so that both or all the alliance structures gain respect of SASCO and COSAS. So we don't have much to say, but to say we have a responsibility to ensure that as young people, we begin to occupy space. And we have a responsibility that as young people, we begin to independently raise our views. And I'm very happy that for the longest time, even ourselves when we were in COSAS, there were those that could use or wanted to use COSAS to air their views that they could not air. And I'm happy and I'm very excited that the leadership of COSAS has been able to redeem COSAS from a structure that must be known as a structure that just pronounces. So we would say today that as we remember the fallen heroes of COSAS, that we are happy and would report to them that we are happy that COSAS is roaring again, and COSAS is actually pragmatic, and COSAS has been able to rescue itself, that COSAS is. Lastly, as we depart, when Comrade Chair used to say, we wish that the President of the African National Congress can actually respond to the demands of young people. We say this because we know that last year we submitted a memorandum, and this year again, we have been able to submit a memorandum in March, and we hope the President will at some point speak to the young people of this country. And we say, long live COSAS, long live. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Comrade Butinani, SASCO SG. Thank you so much. Moving along, comrades, we will then give Ntate Paul Sehlabelo, Chief of Staff from Education, a chance. Ntate Paul. Chief of Staff from Education, Ntate Paul. Okay, we will move Comrades, let's move. We are waiting for Comrade Paul. Is there anyone from YCL? Okay, moving along. Can we then give Comrade Douglas, who's the spokesperson of Cosas National, to introduce to us the president of Cosas?
Thank you very much. The program director, our deputy president, Comrade Caroline Sakele, Beta Pili Basasco, as was present here, Comrade Butanan Tobela, comrades, compatriots, but most importantly, His Excellency, the Commander-in-Chief of all armed forces in the country, Matamela Cyril Ramaphosaue. President, I have to mention the fact that we are glad and happy that you have found your iPad and you are participating here with us. So it is quite a very, very interesting thing that your iPad is returned and we are here again. Comrades, I'm going to be very sweet and short, as I've just been given a task to introduce Tautuna ya runa ya mokgatlo wa baithuti mona Afrika Borwa. Ni ta mi tivisa murhangeri wa hina loyi a nga sungula tipolotiki ta yena kwalano eNorthwest, tipolotiki ta yena ta Cosas, nga xin'we xipinga wo va deputy chairperson ya Cosas a fange Northwest, o dova secretary ya Cosas a fange Northwest, kodwa siye eMagalies. Xa sifike eMagalies, delegates in the majority say that we have strong confidence in this man. We are unapologetically going to elect him uncontested as the president of Cosas, like they did with you, Comrade President, in Nasrec in 2017, when you were elected the leader of the liberation movement, the African National Congress. Comrades, as I have mentioned that I am only introducing the president of the Congress of South African Students, but since the president is here, I think it is quite important, it is imperative that we also mention the fact that we are making a call as a Congress of South African Students to review and change the curriculum so that going forward, we have a career-orientated curriculum which speaks directly to the challenges faced by young South Africans. We want a curriculum which does not prepare young South Africans to be job seekers, but job creators, so that going forward, we do not have these statistics of young people being unemployed, this and that, and then they come back to say that the government, this and that. But I am not addressing here. I am only introducing Tautuna ya runa ya mokgatlo wa baithuti, the President General, Comrade Thabang Mokoena. Thank you, Comrade Deputy President, the Program Director, the Head of the National Disciplinary Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, President Thabang Mokoena. The platform is yours.
Thank you very much. I was muted. Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me start by greeting His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, and the President of the ANC, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosaue. The leadership of SASCO, Young Communist League South Africa, ANC, NYTT, SADU, members of Cosas and Alliance Organization. Good morning, comrades. It is with great pleasure, comrade, for us to meet here under the circumstances of the new normal. The circumstances of COVID-19 corona that continue to claim lives of our people. Cosas would like to send its deepest condolences to the family of Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, whom contributed a lot to African politics, particularly the African National Congress. We'll continue to mourn and remember the fallen hero, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, through a program called Take a Child to School, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, Take a Child to School. It is precisely 4 decades and 2 years since Congress of South African Students was established, when Black students were exploited by white supremacists. Today, Congress of South African Students is convening a student month in remembrance to commemorate the lives of Hector Peterson, Tsietsi Mashinini, and all students of 1976 June 16 uprising in Soweto, who contributed and participated in liberation struggle. As Cosas, we potently believe that it was students who revolted against the apartheid regime when language of Afrikaans alongside English was made compulsory as a medium of instruction in schools. In 1974, it was not fashionable to do so. Cosas therefore wants to make it a clear call that June 16 must be declared the student month, which led to Black students beginning to mobilize themselves against the introduction of this police. Sorry, comrades, my camera is giving me a challenge. Events that triggered the uprising can be traced back to policies of apartheid regime that resulted in the introduction of Bantu Education 1953 Act. My apologies. It is therefore paramount to educate students and the youth at large about the role that students is under the role of the apartheid regime. Through this program, COSAS seeks to revisit the events that led to the June 16 uprising and how students in new democratic dispensation can shape the broader politics, eradicate unemployment, and contribute to socio-economic transformation of young people. It is very miserable that under the democratic government, young people are still suffocating due to unemployment issues. Learners within school premises are still faced with issues that affect the culture of teaching and learning. COSAS commenced to wail for one learner, one tablet a decade ago. Foreseeing the spiral that we are faced with today, it is exactly a decade since our cry as COSAS of demanding educational transformation. However, if our demands of digital education keep on falling, the theory in all subjects in order for the upcoming generation to comprehend their cultural and beliefs and to teach them about the fallen liberators who played a critical role in liberating African continent to democracy. Cosas will also like to extend its infinite support to the ANC as it will be embarking on local general elections later this year in October in support of Mochapalong campaign. Let us continue to be law-abiding citizens by considering safety measures of protecting ourselves against coronavirus by washing our hands, putting on our mask, and social distancing. I thank you very much, Congress. Thank you, Program Director.
Thank you so much, President of the Congress of South African Students of the 19th NEC, Thabang Mokoena, right from the Northwest, Relebogile President. Comrades, please allow me to introduce to you our special guest, the first Secretary General of the African National Congress after the unbanning, can I just... The first Secretary General of the African National Congress after the unbanning the ANC in 1991. The founding SG of the National Union of Mining in 1982. The former Deputy President of both South Africa and the ANC. The current state and the ANC President. The only president who's doing away with corruption currently in the country. Papa Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, you are welcome, Ntate Cyril Ramaphosa. We also would like to thank you for taking your time, as we know that you are very busy, Ntate Ramaphosa. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. Thank you for being part of this wonderful program. Unfortunately, under the circumstances of COVID, we would have loved to do it physically to meet with President, but then as a country, as a nation, hopefully we are in the fourth industrial revolution, so we are here. Thank you so much, Ntate Ramaphosa. You may take the platform, President. Comrades, allow me to introduce to you our special guest, the first Secretary General of the African National Congress after the unbanning of the ANC in 1991, the founding SG of the National Union of Mining in 1982, the former Deputy President of both South Africa and the ANC, the current state and the ANC President, the only president who is doing away with corruption currently, Ntate Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa. Unfortunately, under the circumstances of COVID-19, we had to do with the fourth industrial revolution instead of sitting face to face with the president. So thank you so much for acknowledging our program, Student Day Remembrance by Cosas. Thank you so much, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosaue, as we will now give over to Ntate Ramaphosaue as the keynote address.
Hello. Am I
President.
audible? Am I
Yes.
audible? Am I audible for everyone?
Yes, President.
Okay. Well, thank you, Program Director, President of Cosas, together with your leadership collective, and Cosas convocants who are present, leadership of SASCO, and other fraternal organizations, leadership of the African National Congress, and comrades and friends. Receive, and I'd like to pass on revolutionary greetings on behalf of the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress, to you all and to the Cosas family as a whole. It is indeed a great delight to participate in this function with yourselves. When I received the invitation to come and engage with Cosas, I was really elated, because such an opportunity one does not take lightly, because it is my belief that future leaders of our beloved movement, the Congress movement, will come from your ranks. In fact, speaking as I do, I know for a fact that I'm speaking to the future leaders of our movement. You will be the rightful inheritors of the leadership of our movement, and ultimately you'll be the rightful inheritors of the leadership of the country. We gather here today to commemorate the Gallant Youth of 1976. And this cohort of youth was outstandingly brave. They had unrelenting conviction that never allowed them to betray the cause of freedom. It is important to remember this class of 1976 and the contribution they made to our liberation struggle, because we need to educate our people, and they need to realize that freedom was indeed not free. Some people even had to pay the ultimate price for our freedom, which is life itself. So we are celebrating the bravery of the entire 1976 generation, which, in its unbending belief that freedom must be fought for, dared to bring their oppressive regime to its knees, despite and in spite of the heavily armed security machinery of the apartheid government. It is combatants recruited from this generation who made a significant impact in the operations of Umkhonto we Sizwe. aimed at confronting the enemy inside the country by rendering it ungovernable and its machinery unworkable. So this entire month, we paid tribute to Tsietsi Mashinini and many of his ilk, owing to their necessary impatience as young people. They infused some sense of urgency in pursuance of the National Democratic Revolution. Now, this uprising that began in Soweto spread like wildfire throughout the country, and it immensely altered the course of our struggle and has had an impact also on the socio-political landscape in our country. Now, the struggles in the classroom today are distinctly different from those of the class of '76. These struggles are further exacerbated by the war we are waging against an invisible enemy, that is COVID. After various considerations and recommendations, the National Coronavirus Command Council decided that we place the country at adjusted level 3, but it seems this is not enough if we are to successfully break the chain of the rapid transmission we have been observing. The daily rise in infections is quite worrying. And the worrying part as well is that it is now crossing certain age lines. We're finding that even younger people, much younger people, are becoming infected. And when they do become infected, they in turn pass it on to their own parents. We are now experiencing the full effects of the third wave. As we forewarned earlier this week, our country registered unprecedented daily infection rate. Our vaccination rollout was worryingly slow, and this was due to reasons that we have all come to know. We're happy that we will now be able to vaccinate more people on a daily basis. Program Director, the country is bedeviled by another pandemic, and that is gender-based violence and homophobic crimes. These are thorny issues that organizations such as Cosas have a major role to play in. Your members are born free, and they must not be made to live in fear for whatever reasons. We must, at a very early age, educate boys that they are not better than girls. Added to this, no boy can ever claim ownership and should never claim ownership of a girl and her body. In this context, we must encourage Cosas to revisit the overall impact of its groundbreaking program, Mantombazane Convention, or the Emma Saterhe Detachment, which is aimed at building leadership qualities amongst girls and simultaneously deal with a variety of challenges faced by schoolgirls on a daily basis. This type of initiative is necessary if we are to successfully conscientize and mobilize the whole of society to deal decisively with all the societal ills that we face today. We must condemn with all the contempt that it deserves all acts of bullying that we continue to see in our schools. Cosas must play a central role in inculcating in our learners, diminishing another learner's light does not result in your own light shining brighter. All learners must shun and isolate all bullies in our schools. A bully is no hero, but is rather a barbaric person. The scourge of bullying in our schools negatively affects academic progress for many learners. Let us remember Rufuno Mawungu and others like her. A learner dying as a result of bullying is just one too many. And bullying is learned. And it can be unlearned. It is for this reason that we're now employing a multi-pronged approach to this problem, which we believe is also psychological, mostly perpetrated by children who themselves are victims coming from families with a deep-rooted culture of violence. We call on all stakeholders in our schooling system to work together to ensure that our schools become insulated from any form of violence. Gangsters must also not find space in our schools. Our schools are and must be gun-free zones, and they must also be weapon-free zones. They must be knife-free zones. And all stakeholders must play their roles in ensuring that our schools are safe spaces in order for teaching and learning to occur. These efforts to rid our schools of violence and ensure that learners learn without fear must necessarily be accompanied by efforts against the use of alcohol and drugs in our schools. It goes without saying that Cosas has a major role to play in this. No learner must drink alcohol or use drugs, even when they are not at school, including during school holidays away from school premises or buildings. Any child failing or falling within the school-going age cannot by law be allowed to drink alcohol, let alone abuse it. We equally call on all our people to desist from sending school children to taverns and other liquor stores to buy alcohol, as this may place children at the risk of underage consumption. We must also call on our law enforcement officers to improve their monitoring capacity to ensure that those who continue the unlawful act of selling alcohol to children face the full might of the law. Now, these are social ills that we need to address. But there are other positive things that we would also like to see addressed, because the struggle today is to ensure that our young people learn, and Cosas must be at the forefront of this. Because in the end, the most important thing for students in their role in school is to acknowledge that they have a duty to learn. Their learning is paramount to being meaningfully involved throughout their school learning years. Now, learning through meaningful student involvement should include stated learning goals, and meaningful action, and sustained and deep reflection. And that learning must go beyond just the curriculum and the syllabus. It must be broad learning. It must be the type of learning that opens the minds of young people and enriches their lives at a very young age. For as I said, you are the leaders of tomorrow. You are going to inherit the leadership mantle that rightfully belongs to you. And there are various ways in which learning can happen. I always challenge young people that broaden your learning horizons by reading. I've often challenged university students, and I've often told them my own story. And I used to have I have a friend who's still a good friend who used to read 50 books a year. 50. And I tried to emulate this good friend. I reached 40 books a year. Now, 50 books a year is one book a week. Now, I've often challenged university students, and I've asked them, how many books do you read in a year? And I often take the numbers down. I say, who reads 50 books? Nobody raises their hand. Who reads 40? Nobody. 30? Nobody. 20? Invariably, there'll be one or two. Then 15, a few will raise their hands. And then I ask people, be honest. Those who have not read a book in the past year, raise your hands. And be honest, and many do raise their hands. Showing that the culture of reading is not fully embraced in our country. If you go to countries such as Russia, Cuba, and many other countries, you'll find that people read ferociously. They devour books. Being able to read opens up one's mind. You learn new things every time you open a page. It takes you to other worlds. It gives you broad experiences, new experiences, but it also makes you creative, to dream, to develop a dream when you are still young, which you can pick up from books. Now, I want to encourage young people in our schools to start reading seriously at a young age. And by reading, I mean being able to, yes, you can pick up a real book. Libraries are places where you can read. I used to spend a lot of time in the library when I was young. Even in apartheid days, travel from Soweto, Chiawelo, to the Johannesburg Library, borrow books and read them, take them back. Go to used bookshops, bookshops. Go and buy cheap books, read them. Sale books, read them. Now, what we never often find is along the pathways of and the streets of our country where books are sold, where stalls of books are sold. In other countries, I traveled in Cuba, nearly every corner, there was a book, somebody selling books, spreading knowledge. Now, I'm speaking seriously about this because that is where we derive creativity. That is where we derive our knowledge. And it is through books, reading. Now, it will be very good if Cosas, as an organization, can spread that message and even launch a campaign of reading. And these days, there are so many platforms, so many, I call them gadgets. It can be your phone, you can read a book from your phone, from your iPad. Yes, I did find my iPad. You can read a book from your iPad, from your computer, and so on. This is a serious matter which I would like Cosas to take to heart. If you can take this one to heart and deepen the culture of reading, Cosas occupies a very special place in the Congress movement, but even beyond the Congress movement in the country. You really have no real competitor student organization. You don't. SASCO has, but you don't, that I know of. So it's a great opportunity. Use this opportunity to good effect. Yes, from a young age, inculcate in our young people to know the history of their country. It is so important because out of that, yes, you begin to deepen your knowledge of the political history of our country, but also delve at a young age still in the political economy of our country. Understand how the economy of our country functions. The opportunities that you have now as young people are great and enormous. Use them to good effect. Comrade Butanan of SASCO, yes, there are issues that we need still to address in relation to the challenges that students at tertiary level are facing. The government is ready to engage on those issues. But if you look at what we set out to achieve, to open the doors of learning, a lot has been achieved over the past 27 years. The doors of learning have been opened. And today's challenges are challenges that must be addressed so that, yes, those doors of learning must be doors of learning that leads to quality education, decolonized type of quality education. But it also means that students at all levels must take up their own responsibility. They must be infused with a deep desire and a hunger to do well. They must be so well motivated that, yes, there are challenges, but despite these challenges, they should aspire to be the very best and to get over the challenges that they face as we continue to address these challenges. Now, all of you at school level, at tertiary level, you are the future of the country. What we would like to see out of you are the sparks. We want the stars to shine and come to the fore in the way of living your dreams, in the way of creativity, in the way of innovation, looking at everything that we are doing now, that's happening in our country, and saying, we can do better. We can see that these are the processes that are under, but we can improve on them. Life is about continuous improvement. If you look at our own country, what used to happen in the 40s, in the 30s, it's been improvement continuously. And you therefore have a very, very clear challenge of not letting the side down, because you've got to continue improving and getting better and better all the time. Now, the whole country has been talking about my iPad. Now, you look at how even the originator of the iPad, Steve Jobs of Apple, he was a student. And it was when he was a student that he started dreaming big things and worked hard, had challenges, but worked hard to create the Apple computer, finally the iPod, finally the iPad. And when he brought it to the fore, he said, this changes everything. What that meant was that they were continuing to change things. As young people, your main motif must be to change everything, to change the way things are done, but to change them for the better. That is why being involved in alcohol, in drugs, in bad behavior just takes us back. It must always be to move forward, to do things better. You are going to run the economy of this country. Even now at this age, you must be thinking and dreaming about how are we going to get this economy out of the unemployment challenge that is facing us, the inequality. How are we going to get rid of all these social ills? You must come up with the plans, the ideas. And it is this foundation that you now need to lay. A foundation of being determined to learn, being determined, yes, to read, being determined to understand how our country works, and being determined to work and campaign against the social ills that obtain in your schools. Teachers have also been involved in horrible activities, some of them. Our teachers are wonderful. We've got really good teachers, but some of them have been involved in things and behavior that is unbecoming of teachers. Last week in the Mail and Guardian, I read a story of how a teacher, or was it a principal and a teacher, raped a young girl from the age of 9 in the classroom, in the office of one of them, either the principal's office or so. Horrible stuff. Now, these are things that Cosas must speak up against. These are things that we must root out of our communities. You are well placed as an organization of young people who is allied to the African National Congress, who has sister organizations like SASCO, yes, COSATU, yes, the South African Communist Party, yes, I mean, SANCO, which we need to rebuild. So you are surrounded by a wealth of organizational depth to be able to learn from, to rub shoulders with all these organizations. And the greatest gift you have is that you're part of the Congress movement. And it is this Congress movement that changed the course of South African history. Many countries do not have this great benefit of having a movement that changes the course of the history and the trajectory and the future of a country. We've been very fortunate to have such a movement. We've also been fortunate to have great leaders, gigantic and inspirational and foresightful leaders. We've been able to guide us along the path to where we are, and on whose shoulders many of us stand on to be able to chart a way to the fore. And you will also stand on their shoulders. And today in South Africa, and indeed in Southern Africa, we're also in a period of mourning the passing of our revered, iconic leader, Comrade Kenneth Kaunda, who put the assets of his country and his entire nation at our disposal to enable us to be free. He risked everything, risked attack from the apartheid regime, because his quest was for us to be free. And he said, Zambians will not be free until every country in Southern Africa, and indeed in Africa, is free. So we owe much to KK, as we called him, Kenneth Kaunda, and the people of Zambia. And that is why I will be going to his funeral next week as we lay him to rest. And I will be bearing a message from South Africans to pay tribute to Comrade KK and to the people of Zambia for having sacrificed so much so that we could be free. He is one of the last giants of our freedom fighters and iconic leaders. So it is important that as South Africans, we should pay tribute to him. We will be organizing as the movement a number of memorial manifestations, either in lectures or memorials, to remember Comrade KK. And we will, as South Africans, still pay our full tribute to him. But for now, we've let our flag fly at half-mast, and we've been in a period of mourning to remember him. As I conclude, you are in the month of June. I hope you will be infused by the spirit of the gallant youth of 1976, who dared and succeeded to take on the apartheid regime. With their marches, yes, with their stones, against a heavily armed enemy of our people. So I dip my head for that youth of 1976. And I thank you for giving me this opportunity to be with you this morning. And I wish you the very best in all that you do. And I hope that we'll be able to spend good time talking about the future that you want, because in the end, what we do must be the future that you want. So when I say define it, plot it clearly, and work towards that future, and we will support you, as always. I say, Viva Cosas, Viva. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, President Cyril Ramaphosa. Re lebogetse maele a gago mo presidente. Re utlwile ka go tlala. I hope comrades have also learned something, have picked up few points that the president have highlighted that we as the Congress of South African Students, we should run with. I'm not going to be long, but re lebogile go menagane President Cyril Ramaphosa. I'm going to give over to Somlomo to do the vote of thanks, and we release the president to go and rest.
Wasitswana semonati.
Sakhimbali Ntate Ramaphosa,
Sakimbini. Thank you, Kalemoha.
Somlomo.
No, I can, sir, the deputy president of the organization, the president indicates, the commander-in-chief indicates that Uwasitsana Hantle, Lamento Blabla Changana Shaka ina kunanzika, ni komalani, ni tsikalani.
Na wena uxivulavula kahle swinene.
Inkomo, President, the president of the African National Congress, we have heard what you have addressed us upon on this month of June, which the UN has mistaken for the Youth Month instead of a Student Month, because it was learners in 1976 on the 16th to the 18th of June who took to the streets. There were, some of them were less than 35, this and that, but categorically will say that they are just learners, they were not youth. President, there is a need for a new hygiene of leaders in the country, in the liberation movement, and so forth. We are coming from a regional conference of the ANC in Norman Mashaban, where I come from, a regional conference which you addressed, and you could see from the leadership which is elected there, it is not all the people. Actually, it is not what I usually refer to as the Brentwood cabal. It is young people who are contributing greatly to the livelihood of the African National Congress, to the service delivery of our people. Our people need services. So we hope that going to other regional conferences of the African National Congress, and of course with yourself in 2022, starting your term afresh, necessarily because COVID has coveted us there and there. You will not have executed your duties as president very smoothly. In 2022, we believe that COVID will have passed, and then after that conference, you will be able to start afresh. And yeah, it is not a pronunciation, President, but it is just reality which needs to be outlined. Mine here is just to give a vote of thanks, our most sincere gratitudes to you, the Commander-in-Chief of all armed forces in the country, to say that we are grateful that you have taken this time out of your busy schedule to come and address us as the Congress of South African Students, we know that it is difficult for you to, to make time for us. But in fact, we invited you to come and address us at our anniversary celebration in the Palale, and you could not come because of your busy schedule. And we are glad that since we're in the fourth industrial revolution and you have your iPad there, you are able to address us. President, this is a battle. You have mentioned that we have a second pandemic, which is gender-based violence. I mean, there are teachers who are raping learners and so forth. It is uncalled for. That is a demon which needs to be casted out. But the Congress of South African Students cannot do that alone. It needs the utmost support of the African National Congress as the liberator of society. The African National Congress should support our structures in provinces so that when there is a case in Eastern Cape, we do not have to get President Thabang Mokoena going to the Eastern Cape. The provincial leadership of the Eastern Cape have to deal directly with the leadership, with the case, wherever the case may be, and things like that. So we just want the support from the African National Congress. As much as we are supporting the African National Congress, we are members of the African National Congress in our own rights. In our own spaces, in our respective branches, we support the African National Congress. The African National Congress must support the Congress of South African Students, because we do not want to find ourselves in a situation where there is a case of brutality or injustice against learners, and then counter-revolutionaries go there and address that challenge, necessarily because Cosas is not capacitated to be able to address those challenges. Of course, President, we will have a meeting. We will call for a meeting with you to give you all our frustrations. We're young people, we are frustrated. That is why everywhere you go, you will see that young people are busy saying, begeli beke, what. They are not coming with anything substantial. So we are not to be a generation which becomes indebted to alcohol, and we must be a generation which strives for something so that tomorrow we make our country a better country. There is a child who is born today. We must show it upon us, 10 to 20 years. That child must find a South Africa which is accommodative to that specific child. So in our vote of thanks, we would like to thank everyone who has participated in this discussion, in this Youth Month commemoration. President, we have strong confidence under your leadership. Work. You are a champion who fights against corruption and everything. Continue fighting like that. That we have a country which is corruptionless, a country which does not fail. Which does not fail to provide services to its people necessarily because of corruption. So, Deputy President, the Program Director, Raul Lebuhe, the President of Cosas, Comrade Thabang Mokoena, Raul Lebuhe, the address which you have given us on behalf of Cosas, and everyone who has participated in this. Ingo xiandla henhla ka xiandla xin'wani ya mahlweni hi tlhela hi kota ku swi endlisa hi ndlela leyi. Cosas ya mahlweni yi karhi yi kula, hi ta kota ku yi kurisa loko hi ri xilo xin'we. We must be united with all sectors of society, with all political formations. the Secretary General of South African Student Congress. We thank you for the continuous guidance that you always give us. Tate Paul Sehlabelo, you have not spoken, but we have never doubted your support for the Congress of South African Students as a Department of Basic Education. The issue of vaccination is an issue which we are discussing with with you to say that it must not be only teachers who are vaccinated, learners too must be vaccinated. And if it means that we have to shut down all schools in the country until all learners are vaccinated, we are going to do that, but we are going to do it in a very constructive manner. Thank you, Comrade Deputy President.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Somlomo. Thank you so much to President Cyril Ramaphosa. Thank you to the President of Congress of South African Students, Thabang Mokoena. Thank you to SASCO. Thanks to everyone who joined, who participated in this. Thank you, Comrades Pula.